What's up, guys? D-Rock1992 here. For this next video, and for my next Marvel movie review, I'm going to be reviewing the third movie of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that is the sequel to Iron Man, Iron Man 2. Iron Man 2, of course, the sequel to the first Iron Man, which came out in 2008 and was such a big hit and was such a very important movie for comic book movies in general. And very important because comic book movies are now so popular today. And I think we owe that to Iron Man big time, and The Dark Knight when that came out in 2008. And you could even say The Incredible Hulk as well. But yeah, definitely, it was such a great hit. So naturally, I've said it before, I mean, sequels are tough to do. I mean, it's tough to follow up a big success with another movie, and many sequels have failed to recapture the original, or like outdo the original. There have only been a few in history that have actually been able to outdo the original. And, but with Iron Man 2, they tried to do that. Robert Downey Jr. and Gwyneth Paltrow, of course, they reprised their roles as Iron Man slash Tony Stark and Pepper Potts. They reprised their roles from the first film. Then you get a ton of secondary characters in the movie, new secondary characters. Jeff Bridges does not return from the first movie. Terrence Howard actually does not return as War Machine from the first Iron Man. And the reason I found out he didn't return was because director Jon Favreau, who directed the first Iron Man, didn't really like filming Terrence Howard's scenes in particular, or something like that. Just, I don't know if he was fun to work with or not, but anyway, Terrence Howard did not return as War Machine. Don Cheadle comes in with Iron Man 2 as War Machine. You have newcomer Sam Rockwell, who I had seen previously in, well, I had seen him, I've watched Iron Man 2 before, but this is just a fresh review of it, a fresh review of it. When I watched it last time, I really liked it. But I've seen Sam Rockwell in Iron Man 2, and I saw him in the first Charlie's Angels movie, the one with Cameron Diaz, Lucy Liu, and Drew Barrymore. And I thought he was very good in that. But Sam Rockwell's in it as one of the main villains. Not the major villain, but he is still a villain. He plays a rival of Tony Stark. This guy, his character plays a rival business competitor. He also heads weapons like Tony Stark does. Tony Stark heads weapons industries thing, Sam Rockwell plays Justin Hammer of Hammer Industries, or something like that. Mickey Rourke, who's a very accomplished actor, by the way. I mean, he definitely is very accomplished. He plays the major villain. He plays a man named Ivan Vanko, or Whiplash, one of the primary villain of Iron Man 2. So he comes in. We see Samuel L. Jackson come in for the second time. He actually, what I forgot to mention was, in the first Iron Man, he appeared in the end credits scene, talking to Robert Downey Jr., talking to Tony Stark about the Avengers Initiative, the Avengers plan. So, he was talking to him about that. Samuel L. Jackson does have a very, very small role in the film. I mean, it's not a cameo, but it is, it's not as big a role as Scarlett Johansson. This is Scarlett Johansson's first film as Black Widow was Iron Man 2. And those are pretty much the major guys. I mean, Jon Favreau, who directed Iron Man 2, also came back as Happy Hogan, I think his name was. Yeah, Happy Hogan. The bodyguard to Tony Stark. Paul Bettany comes back as Iron Man's computer assistant Jarvis. Clark Gregg plays Agent Coulson of S.H.I.E.L.D., the organization that Nick Fury works for, played by Samuel L. Jackson. So, those are pretty much the characters. Now, what the movie is about, I have to spoil the end of Iron Man 1 for you to set up Iron Man 2. In Iron Man 1, Tony Stark does reveal that he is Iron Man, that he is actually Iron Man. And now he has to deal with the aftermath. This movie right here deals with the aftermath of him telling the world he is Iron Man. So basically, he uses his fame, he uses his newfound fame as Iron Man to do good things. He establishes the Tony Stark Expo for youngsters that are interested in developing technology of their own. But also he has some issues. Ivan Vanko, or Whiplash, of course, as I mentioned, played by Mickey Rourke, he tries to take revenge on Iron Man / Tony Stark for his father. I'm not going to get into why, but it's revenge against Tony Stark for the injustices the Stark family has done to him and his own family. So Iron Man has to deal, Tony Stark / Iron Man, he has to deal with Whiplash, or Ivan Vanko, as a major villain. He also has to deal with his own failing health. He's dying, actually. He has to deal with his impending death. Obviously, he came back in Iron Man 3, so he didn't die. He has to deal with that. He has to deal with the pressures, well, not really the pressures of fame, but just getting out of control and things like that. So the primary villain, again, is Whiplash. He has to defeat him, and Whiplash goes into cohorts with Justin Hammer, played by Sam Rockwell. And he has to defeat those two. He has to worry about his own health. He has to do all this kind of stuff. He's juggling different things. So this is a very engaging Iron Man for sure. We see Tony Stark in a more vulnerable state than we did in Iron Man. We really do see him in a more vulnerable state for sure. It seems like he's more human than iron at the beginning of this film, throughout the film, basically. But, anyway, the characterization of this movie. Again, Robert Downey Jr. and Gwyneth Paltrow knock it out of the park for me. They have amazing chemistry together, and they were both great characters in the movie. Now on to the new people. Don Cheadle replacing Terrence Howard as War Machine. I thought he did a pretty good job. I thought he did a nice job as War Machine. His chemistry with Robert Downey Jr. was very good. And he was a nice, welcome addition to the group as War Machine. Sam Rockwell is the main villain. I really loved Sam Rockwell as the villain. I really did. He brought a different kind of comic relief villain to this film that Jeff Bridges' character didn't bring to the first Iron Man. So he brought a different kind of villain to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I loved it. He was really good. He was one of the highlights for me in Iron Man 2. Mickey Rourke as Whiplash / Ivan Vanko. Okay. Nothing really, really special. He spoke Russian. Ivan Vanko. Ivan's a Russian name. So he did come from Russia. His Russian accent was tough to understand sometimes. I mean, but that's not the main issue of it. Well, maybe a little bit, because I couldn't really understand him at some points of the film. I thought the character he portrayed, I thought his character was okay. Nothing really special, but serviceable enough. Then Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow. A lot of people like Scarlett Johansson as an actress. She's one of the most accomplished actresses of our generation right now. Taking away from this movie and some of the other films I've seen her in, I do not think she's a terrible actress at all. I just don't have the same... I just don't love her. I don't love her as an actress. She's okay. But I guess she'd be one of the actresses that's really accomplished that I actually don't... At times, I don't really care for her acting. At other times, though, she's a pretty accomplished actress. She does good. The performance in the movie, I mean, you bring in Black Widow. This is my own point of view about it. You don't bring in Black Widow solely because of the acting. You bring her in because of the acting and the characterization and her own character. They don't really get into her character in Iron Man 2. Not really. She's a supporting presence behind in Iron Man 2. But you also bring her in because she's so damn gorgeous. I mean, Scarlett Johansson's pretty fine to look at. And to boot, she's an accomplished fighter. She is a member of S.H.I.E.L.D., the organization of the that the Avengers are underneath. Coming up later, obviously, but yeah, Scarlett Johansson, yeah, did okay in my opinion. Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury did good. I liked his performance. Samuel L. Jackson anyway is one of my favorite actors of all time. He is just a very accomplished guy. He's one of the best supporting actors of all time. He's not... You don't find Samuel L. Jackson a lot in his own starring roles in movies. But when he is, he's pretty good. But he's more of a force as a supporting actor. Definitely, in Hollywood. So those are the characterizations, the major characterizations in the movie. Having said that, I love this movie. I really love this movie. I mean, it showed a side of Iron Man that we really hadn't seen before. We didn't see in the first Iron Man. We saw a more vulnerable Iron Man, and I thought it was a very good thing to see that. You know, all the characterization was very... there were characters in this movie that were very good. There were characters in this movie, like I said, that were solid enough and didn't take away from the film at all. You know, Johansson's performance and Rourke's performance, they didn't take away from the film at all, in my opinion. Having said that, I think Iron Man 2 is a better movie than Iron Man. Now, I talked about sequels beforehand. I am primarily a guy who likes sequels better than the original movies. I just am that kind of person. You know, for example, Horrible Bosses 2, I reviewed that movie. I like it better than the first movie. Just an example right there. But, yeah, Iron Man 2, I thought was a better film than Iron Man. Iron Man's a very good film anyway. It's a very good film. Iron Man 2 is awesome. And you may have guessed it, I mean, it's a 5 out of 5 stars for me. It really is an accomplished movie. It got a 73% on Rotten Tomatoes, which isn't bad at all. I mean, for a sequel, that's very good. But But yeah, Iron Man 2 is a very good film. 5 out of 5 stars. Robert Downey Jr. and Gwyneth Paltrow once again prove why they have some of the best chemistry in movie history, in my opinion. Sam Rockwell plays a great villain. The other performances are solid and, serviceable, definitely. But they don't take away from the film at all. They're great action scenes. Just a great, great movie. And I really love the movie a lot. So that is it for my review on Iron Man 2. D-Rock 1992, out.